Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Good morning, good evening, depending on where everyone is.
Depending on where.
Oh, we have to wait for Sherry. She had some difficulty joining. There she is. Hi, Sherry. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Hi. I can hear
Hi.
you. Hi.
Wonderful, great.
Hi.
So let's get started. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. This is a cross-continental live stream. My name is Ella Bekeshi, and I will be the moderator of today's event, which is titled Women in Heritage, Education and Career Opportunities, International, Intergenerational, and Interdisciplinary Collaboration, the 3 I's. And I am, for those of you who don't know me, I am the co-founder and co-director of Heritage Education Network Belize, the organization co-hosting this event with Europa Nostra. And I have worked as an archaeologist and then in the heritage field since 2014. And I am also part of the 2022 European Heritage Youth Ambassadors team. And I have been a young member at Europa Nostra and also part of the Women for Heritage Network. And I always found it so, inspiring. And I just want to mention that I was fortunate to be surrounded by amazing women throughout my career, starting with my university professors and then going into working with heritage organizations and also other colleagues. And the NGO I run, HENBI, or Heritage Education Network Belize, also happens to be a female-led nonprofit, and it is something we try to embrace. And we look at providing guidance for young women in the heritage field, but also we look at women's roles in safeguarding culture and heritage throughout history, throughout time. And so I reached out to Europa Nostra and the Women for Heritage Network as a European Heritage Ambassador to make this event a reality. And so I'm really, really excited. And we have a few wonderful and accomplished women as speakers with us today. And today's discussion is basically aimed at students and young professionals to discuss education and career opportunities and challenges for the future of women in cultural heritage in general. And the speakers we have are, first of all, our co-host, Manon Richard. She is the EU project officer at Europa Nostra. So thank you for letting me do this event with you. And also we have Sarah Crofts, who is a member of the council and the Women for Heritage Network of Europa Nostra. And then we have Sherry Gibbs, who is a researcher and lecturer and dean in the Faculty of Arts, Sciences and Technology at Galen University in Belize. And we have Jasna Popovic, who's a programs officer at Hispania Nostra and ESAC. And also she's also an Europa Nostra European Heritage Youth ambassador. And then we have Melissa Vadillo, who is the director of the Belize Institute of Archaeology under the National Institute of Culture and History. So we are very lucky to have a cross-continental group with us from Europe and from Belize in Central America. And I think it really shows that the Women for Heritage Network really is, a space to exchange ideas and practices between women in the heritage sector globally, today more specifically between Europe and Central America. So today's program, during today's program, we will have a short presentation about the Women for Heritage Network, and then we will listen to our speakers, and then afterwards we will have a short Q&A session at the end. So make sure to ask your questions in the comment section. So now let's get started. And I would like to give the word to Manon, the EU Project Officer at Europa Nostra, to talk more about the Women for Heritage Network. And if that is okay, I will share a slide with you and give the word to Manon. Wonderful.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Ella. And well, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning to all Women for Heritage watching us today. First of all, I would like to thank everybody who is joining us on this very special intercontinental, interdisciplinary, and intergenerational dialogue. I also want to thank the speakers who have enthusiastically accepted our invitation to share their experiences on education and career opportunities in the heritage field. And I'm really sure we will have a lot of food for thought today. And last but not least, also thank you, Ella and the Heritage Education Network Belize for our cooperation in organizing this event. At Europa Nostra, we are really delighted that this event is also a contribution to the European Year of Youth 2022, which is a year aiming at engaging and empowering and connecting youth and especially women in an intergenerational dialogue. So now, just a few words on our Women for Heritage Network. It's an informal network that aims at enhancing the diversity and inclusiveness of the Europa Nostra movement. It was launched in 2021, and it now counts more than 180 female members. The network aims at bringing together female heritage professionals and volunteers of all ages from across Europe and even beyond in an exchange of information, ideas, and opportunities, also to enhance new partnerships and inspire other women in order to have a more powerful collective voice and also boost then innovation within the sector. So what we've done so far is organizing 2 annual gatherings on the 8th of March on the occasion of the International Women's Day. As you can see on the slides, they happened only online for the time being due to the pandemic, but we really hope to be able to convene physically in the near future. So each year there is an underlying theme to guide our discussion. Well, this year it was intergenerational exchange, innovation, and creativity. And in the coming years, it will also be devoted to other topical issues in the heritage field. These events were really celebratory, highly interactive, and informal in sorority atmosphere. I must say it was really inspiring to see women of all ages sharing their passion and personal stories about heritage. But beyond these events, we're committed to activating and engaging our community throughout the year to empower female heritage professionals, facilitate their networking and peer learning. So after the first event, we have created a LinkedIn group, which I warmly invite you to join. I will put the link in the chat. I hope everybody will be able to see it. And now we're also planning a series of interviews to be published online in written or video format. I would also just like to flag that all these activities are made possible thanks to the support of the Creative Europe program of the European Union through a network project run by Europa Nostra that is called European Cultural Heritage Agora, empowering Europe's civil society movement for heritage, that has started at the beginning of the year and will run until the end of 2024. We are really grateful for the support of the European Commission, and we look forward to welcoming you to our growing movement of Women for Heritage Without Borders. So I wish you fruitful exchanges today. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Ella.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Like I said, I've been part of the Women for Heritage Network, I think ever since the beginning, and I've been going to all the events, and I really enjoy having a community. It really means a lot to have such wonderful women whose minds I can pick about career opportunities and all of that. So let's get started with our wonderful speakers. First off, we have Sarah Crofts, who's originally trained as an architect at Edinburgh College of Art, where she specialized in historic building conservation. And Sarah worked for a number of architectural practices dealing with the repair and conservation of historic buildings before joining the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings as Church's caseworker in 2003. And she was then promoted to the role of project director of the SPAB's Faith in Maintenance project in 2006, and later became deputy director. And in 2015, she joined the Heritage Lottery Fund as head of historic environment before returning to the voluntary sector to take up the role of chief executive at ICON in January 2019. So the floor is yours.
That's very kind, Ella. I will launch straight in that case. Having thought about what I would share with you all this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever it happens to be, I settled on offering 3 pieces of what I hope is careers advice that might be of use, things that have been useful to me that you might benefit from. So I will share those now. The first is that in my career, I think what I know has been possibly less important than who I know. So knowledge is very good, but actually connections are very valuable. So my first piece of advice is to encourage you to learn how to network effectively and how to get meaningful connections with other people. And I know that a lot of people are a bit nervous about networking, particularly in person. It does get easier with practice, is what I would suggest. And a lot of it is about just giving it a go. Someone once pointed out to me that if you see someone else standing on their own on the edges of a conference, the chances are that they are desperately hoping that someone will come and talk to them. So be that person, go up and talk to that other person who's there on their own, and be curious about them, ask them questions. That's a great way to get a conversation started. And I do genuinely believe that those connections are very valuable. I actually still meet up regularly with colleagues that I first met professionally probably 20 years ago. And in some cases, both of us have moved on through various roles in various organizations, but we've maintained the relationship. So that means that now we probably don't talk about things that are specific to our jobs or the sector because we're in slightly different places. But we still exchange advice and support on broader issues, things maybe like managing people, about how to be a good leader, how to get the best out of staff and projects. And I'd say don't estimate the value of a colleague who's simply happy to listen while you let off a bit of steam, because sometimes we just need someone to listen. So nurture your professional connections. My second piece of advice is about following your instinct, being curious. Every career experience that you will have will teach you something, even if it's not obvious at the time and even if it's not much fun at the time. I really don't think there is anything as obvious as a set career path or a particular route that you follow in the cultural heritage sector, or a particular set of things that you need to add to your CV in order to succeed. I'd actually say that in many ways, it's the less obvious experiences that are likely to help you grow most professionally and will help you stand out from the crowd. Having a range of activities and projects on your CV shows that you're well-rounded and it shows that you're adaptable. I'm less and less convinced that being a very knowledgeable expert in a very niche area is the best thing to be these days. I think actually having a general knowledge, lots of things that you're aware of, is a much stronger position to be in. And an example of when saying yes to an opportunity, even if it can be a bit scary, turns out well. A couple of years ago, I was asked if I would chair a grants panel by our Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK. And our task was to award £15 million of funding for research equipment. And I was asked to chair a panel of about 20 academic experts, most of whom I had never met. And we had to do the whole thing online in 2 days with a horrendously tight schedule. It was absolutely terrifying. My heart rate was up to goodness knows where. My blood pressure, I was nervous, I was shaky. It was very, very stressful. But we got there and it was a very rich and rewarding experience. And on the back of that, all of the things that I learned, partly the hard way in that particular instance, have stood me in really good stead. And I've used them recently, as it happens, while being part of or chairing a panel in the Europa Nostra Awards. So did I enjoy it? Not really, probably at the time, but did it help me a great deal? Yes, it absolutely did. And my third and final piece of advice is don't underestimate the power of serendipity, or luck, if you like. But do remember that it takes imagination to spot the potential sometimes, and then creative thinking to get the best out of that lucky opportunity. So sometimes good things happen simply because you're in the right place at the right time. But they actually only really happen because you have the skills and the knowledge to recognize that opportunity and to create something good from it. So I often describe my particular key skill as being able to join the dots, to put the pieces together in order to discover the whole picture, to see the patterns in a bunch of unrelated or apparently unrelated ideas. And what do? Well, I skim read a lot of sector newsletters. I glance a lot at social media. And what I'm trying to do is pick out where there's words or phrases or ideas that match up with something I already know, or something I've already heard about elsewhere. And when I start to see two or more ideas or thoughts or comments that have a similar theme, then I think maybe there's something there, and I take that moment and reach out to those people and see if we can make a connection. Because collaboration is absolutely going to be how we work in the future. Nothing happens now unless it happens collaboratively. So find out who's doing what. Create yourself a little mental map or a doodle that shows you who in this sector is doing different things, so that when you've got a question or when you've got an idea, you know already who perhaps you might turn to help or to get involved. So there you go, 3 top tips, and I'm happy to expand on those later if we have time. Thank you, Ella.
Thank you. These are really useful, wonderful tips. I'm also a young professional in the heritage field. I graduated from my master's in 2017, and I think I've experienced all of these things that you mentioned, how important networking is, how it takes something to see some of the opportunities and then creativity to pursue them. I've come across these challenges before, especially when starting our nonprofit. And really, our nonprofit also started as a group project with some of my great friends from archaeology, and that was exactly what you said. We kept in touch. We had a good friendship, and then it became something that we can put on this event today. So that's really something, I think. Thank you for all of this. Our next speaker is Sherry Gibbs, who is a researcher and lecturer and a dean in the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology at Galen University. Hi, Sherry. You've had some issues with your internet, so if you cut off, we're gonna skip to the next speaker and then get back to you. Just want to let everyone know. So let me introduce you, Sherry. Sherry was raised in Southern Ontario, Canada, and she then studied archaeology at Memorial University of Newfoundland, Canada, and completed an MA in bioarchaeology at Trent University in Canada, focusing on the skeletal assemblage at Acton Muknal archaeological site in Belize. Sherry was staff archaeologist for the Tourism Development Project, overseeing the conservation work at 5 archaeological sites across Belize. And she has contributed greatly to the bioarchaeological corpus of the literature in West Central Belize. And Sherry then joined Galen University in 2008, serving as assistant professor in the newly founded anthropology department. And she now serves as dean in the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology, a role she assumed in 2018. Sherry is passionate about education, having developed the current anthropology degree offerings at Galen University. She has impacted the development of archaeology and anthropology in Belize for over a decade through her guidance and mentorship of students and the founding of the Galen University Anthropology Club. And through her efforts at Galen University, she seeks to remain flexible and adaptable to ensure that the anthropology archaeology degree is always responsive to the current needs of our society. Sherry, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Ella. I hope everybody can hear me. Yeah, I'm sorry for my internet issues if I get kicked out or maybe you can't hear me very well. I really want to thank Ella and the other fantastic women at Heritage Education Network and Europa Nostra, Women for Heritage Network. Thanks so much for inviting me to come on today. And I want to say hi to Melissa. I haven't seen Melissa in quite some time. So yeah, I really enjoyed Sarah's quick little talk there, and I totally agree with what she was saying. And it actually started me to think that maybe I should modify a little bit what I was going to talk about and see if I can highlight some of that, because that's really how my journey kind of got me to where I am today. I really wasn't so sure about the role or the purpose of my journey when I started. I tell a lot of students when we do marketing, when I talk to high school students, when we do outreach with our fantastic Anthro Club that we have at Galen, you know, figure out what you're passionate about, what you're interested about. That's really going to help you as you sort of embark on your career, your education career, especially doing something or studying something that you really like. But I also recognize too that that's a bit of a privilege, especially being in a country like Belize. We're small, we don't always see a lot of opportunities, and especially in the fields of heritage and archaeology, even though we're surrounded by all of these wonderful sites and there's so much, we're so rich with culture and heritage, it's frustrating to then find that maybe there aren't as many opportunities for individuals as there might be some other places. So that's been a real challenge for me and has been frustrated for me as I see our students and how passionate they are, and they really love what they do and they get excited about their classes and all of their opportunities. realizing that they really need to be creative. And that was one of the things that Sarah had mentioned, really that creative thinking, almost like this entrepreneurial way of thinking of what you're going to do. So when I was first starting out that my journey, I really wasn't sure about my role or my purpose. I just kept following along with what I was interested in. And I always had this idea that something's going to come along. I think it kind of drove my parents a little bit bonkers because, you know, my dad, what are you going to do for a job? And I said, well, something's going to come up. I really like what I'm studying. And so I'm sure something's going to happen. And I realize how privileged I am because of that. But making those connections, as Sarah had mentioned, really being curious and getting involved. And that's one of the things that I keep telling students, that no matter really what it is, you have these little opportunities to participate, to, you know, check out events like this, to go out and to meet people. You're building your social capital, you're meeting individuals. You don't know where those relationships are going to lead you, because it really is, as Sarah had mentioned, it's who you know. Unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of times, you know, it's those connections that you've made and those people that you know that you can sort of draw upon, or they might know what you're interested in and be able to connect you and say, hey, there's this opportunity available. And remember, we were talking about this. You might be interested in this. And more so today, we're seeing how important that is. I also think where you are, the right place at the right time. And I think that I have been in those positions and took advantage of the opportunities as they presented themselves. And so again, one of those things that I can just talk about for students out there, anybody out there who's interested and trying to wonder how do they get involved, whether it's archaeology, heritage management, is taking advantage of those opportunities as they get presented to you, and being, you know, recognizing that you're in that right place at the right time, and grabbing onto it and seeing where it goes. If you have to be a little adventurous, willing to step out of your comfort zone. One of the things that I really struggled with from early on, I remember it was a friend's husband had said to me, I was talking about my research and what I was doing in grad school, and then he said, how does this contribute to, how are you contributing to society? Why should this be something that, you know, you're able to do? How do you get funding to do this? And I got, you know, at first sort of defensive, but really that has been something that has stuck with me from the very beginning, is how is this contributing? How does what I am doing contributing to society? And I think that's really, really important for everyone to keep in mind. Does archaeology matter? Does heritage matter? What is the purpose of all of this? Is it just for information? So Sarah had talked about, you know, at sort of general knowledge and having that information. So when I say, yeah, I think this is, you know, good stuff to know and good stuff to have, but really in the greater scheme of things, is all of this important? And who is all of this for? I think that also is an extremely important question, is who are we doing this for? In Belize, you know, we could say, well, the tourism industry, bringing tourists in, which then generates money and income for people, and, you know, that all trickles down. But what about Belizeans, and what about Indigenous people? If we're studying ancient Maya sites, working and excavating at these cities, how are we contributing then to the local communities? How are we contributing to the various Indigenous groups here? Is that knowledge, is it something that they want? And then human rights as well. How does that impact human rights? And so when I was studying or bioarchaeology, it was something that was starting to steer me into getting into working with human rights organizations. How can we help identify who these individuals are that are being found in clandestine graves? And so wanting to make sure that this was important for people. And is it needed for Belize's development? And, you know, realizing more and more that, yes, it's really, really important for a number of reasons. When I talk to students about sustainable development, so one of our big themes at Galen is promoting sustainable development, and all of our students have to take classes in sustainable development. And what is it? What does it mean? And oftentimes it's just those three pillars that get talked about: society, economics, and environment. Society, environment, economics. But you know, it's been expanded. But I would always include culture, and I used to talk to the instructors and the various people that would teach these classes that, do you ever talk about culture as being one of those pillars, that it has to be separate from society? And they said, oh, we just dump it in to society. And I said, but it needs to be separated and pulled out there. You can't be looking at them together because they are very different. And it's important for development. It's important for those people to be able to connect with and know their value culturally. So I feel, for me, I found my purpose, I think, and role in all of this in becoming an educator. And so being able to have students come into the classroom and talk about all of this and impart some knowledge and some skills, and hopefully inspiring young Belizeans. Again, really important, recognizing that I'm not from here. I've been living here for 20 years, but still recognizing that, you know, I've come from privilege. I've come somewhere else where I've had that opportunity to be here. But making sure that Belizeans and Belizean women are inspired to continue. And it's just, you know, more and more students in the classrooms. Sometimes my classes are all women, recognizing the women who have helped me get here along the way. But I also do, and I know we're here for, you know, women in heritage, but I have to give some shout outs to the guys along the way, and to my dad, who always encouraged me. There are going to be people who are going to encourage you, and there are going to be people who are going to discourage you. Like, you know, what is the purpose of all of this, and why are you doing it? And to really focus on those, latch on and hold on to those people who are encouraging you and inspiring you and pushing you, and know that they're there to support you, and keep that support network, knowing that they're always there, that you can go back to, and don't listen to all of the noise that you're going to hear along the way, and yeah, focus in on what it is that you want to do. So I've really kind of strayed a little bit from what I had originally put together at parts, but yeah, I hope, and then we can talk more as we go along.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had two things that I actually thought was very interesting from what you said. The first one is when you asked how does what we're doing is contributing to society, or who are we doing this for? And I've noticed that a lot of times these are questions that are not being asked. And, you know, even for our nonprofit, that's what we first asked, you know. We first asked, how are we helping with, you know, how are we helping the Indigenous communities? How are we helping the frontline communities next to archaeological sites, for example? That was the core of why we started the organization. And it's not just for the purposes of running good projects, you know, it's also for ourselves, because we're all in it because we love it. And so it is really important to know why we're doing it, because sometimes, like you said, sometimes people question it. Sometimes they ask, oh, what is the point of this? What was the point of this specific live? What was the point of this project? And then we really need to know what we're doing this for and who we're doing this for. So then we can, you know, answer those questions and say, yes, this was important because of this and this and this, because we're helping these and these communities, because we're, you know, providing educational opportunities or information and so on, just like this live. So that was one of the things that I picked up on from what you said. And then the other is you mentioned that a lot of people don't mention culture as a pillar for development. And we actually had a very, very interesting conversation with a young researcher from Brazil who is looking at, who's doing his PhD research on culture indicators. And what he found is that they established this very interesting lotus model, he calls it, where culture is actually not even a pillar of development, but the base underneath, holding up all the other pillars like environment, economics, society, and all of these other pillars. So it's very, very, very interesting, and he kind of brings culture into all of this. And he claims that, you know, if without culture we wouldn't have any of these other elements for development. So it's very interesting. It's on our page if you'd like to watch it later on, but I just picked up on that as well because I thought it was very, very interesting. Thank you so much for your advice. And next up we have Jasna Popovic, who is a programs officer at Hispania Nostra, and ESAH, Europa Nostra, European Heritage Youth Ambassadors, along with me. And her, let me just introduce Jasna. So she graduated from law in Belgrade, Serbia, and she holds 2 master's degrees, one in international public law and another in human rights. And she is now a PhD candidate at UC3M Madrid, Spain, researching the link between the protection of cultural heritage and tourism. She's also working in Hispania Nostra, concentrating on the European perspective and international projects. The floor is yours.
Oh, hi to everyone. Greetings from Madrid. First of all, thank you, Ala, thank you, Manon, and the network Women for Heritage for inviting me to talk today, to this evening. Here from Madrid, it's 6 something. And I would really like to express my gratitude both to Sarah and Sherry for sharing such an amazing stories. I was actually taking notes, so while I'm trying to, share my story, I'm also very much into picking up on other people's ideas and what Sarah already told, like linking the dots, if that's possible. I'm gonna try to be brief about what I do and how I ended up here. So, as Ella said, I started my studies in Belgrade. I finished law, which initially it has little to do with the cultural heritage, with culture, and I get a lot of questions related. So, how did you end up here? So, why are you doing this? Why didn't you study like criminal law or just continued with civil law, whatever? But I always wanted to be part of cultural heritage movement, and that was my way of going into, because what I really like about the field of cultural heritage is that we need experts from all around. So we need both biologists and archaeologists and lawyers and politics and people from economics. So this was my way in. And for me, one of the biggest well, now when I look back, is assets, but biggest like earth shattering moment was when I decided to, change my life and to go to a different country, to live on a different language, to live within the different culture. I understand that Cherry and Ella could agree with me on that. So for me, that was when I realized how important my culture background is, and how important it is for me to understand others people culture backgrounds, so we can, add instead of get into a conflict. And I really learned a lot about myself, about my community, and about the world that I live in, about the society where I live in. And the other things that I would like to point out during my very short career so far is that I completely agree with Sarah that every experience matters. So I would always say yes to different volunteering works, to projects that maybe initially don't have a lot of things in common with what I originally thought, but at least I get new friends, people who now support me here, my network of friends and family, and I also learn some some interesting new skills, whether it's how to work with people, how to deal in a crisis situation, how to manage work emails, it's everything is a process, and everything can add up to our experience and everyday life later on. I'm very lucky in a sense that I work in a all-female office, so it's 5 of us who are actually running Hispania Nostra, and we have, of course, full support of our elderly male workers, but volunteers, because in board we have friends from both sides, but we are also led by an amazing woman called Araceli Pereira, and she's really been our driving force, and she showed us, and she often talks about us, how is the journey that we've come to walk, and what's the path, and that we can, amongst our women, help each other to understand us better, and to be the network that we can rely on. So it is, for me, it is a really an amazing experience that I get to enjoy every day. It is also very interesting because there's, well, now that speaking of gender and that part, that something is understood among us. We just, it's easier to flow around the office all day knowing that we have each other's backs, even though we do feel that intergenerational differences, and in my case, foreign national differences that can add to enriching our experiences every day. And while I was preparing for this short, I hope to end soon, intervention, there was a one bullet point that Manon and Ella sent us, which is, have you ever been a mentor to a female, well, to anyone, but especially to female young professionals? And I have to share my experience, even though I consider myself quite young in that field, in the sense of my career is just starting. I got the task to manage trainers in our office. So I'm just closing my final briefing, but there were 5 young female experts in parts of culture and heritage and tourism, and it got me thinking that, even though it's 5-6 years difference between us, I still feel the intergenerational maybe lack, in a sense, and that I get to learn from them as well, because I was always learning from people who are older than me, and now I get to see what younger generations have to say, and of course they are already prepared to enter the professional life. They are not high school students; they're master's degree students. So their opinions are very relevant, and their input is very valued in our office. So for me, that was. Maybe also a signal that I'm not the youngest one anymore in the office, that I get to be in the middle, and then I get to enjoy learning from both sides now, while continuing my journey. So Ella, that would be all for now, and I'm open to any questions, and of course I would like to share my contacts if anyone wants to contact me later on. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I honestly identify with a lot of things that you said. I think we're at the same, stage of our careers, and we both left our home countries to work in other countries. So I definitely, I really identify, what you said about working internationally with people from all over the world. And I feel like that makes you really socially sensitive to how other people are thinking, or how they're looking at life, how they're interpreting things that you may interpret differently. And so you really learn how to communicate with people. I think that's one of the greatest things that I experienced in leaving Hungary and going to work in other countries. So yeah, definitely. Next up, we have Dr. Melissa Badillo, who is the director of the Belize Institute of Archaeology, under the Institute of the National Institute of Culture and History in Belize. So let me introduce Dr. Melissa. She is the current interim director at the Belize Institute of Archaeology, with responsibility for overseeing 14 archaeological reserves open for public visitation, and working with the 27 different archaeological projects that conduct research in Belize annually. Dr. Badillo has been working with the former Department of Archaeology and now the Institute of Archaeology since 2001. And she recently completed a PhD in anthropology at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. And she's actively involved with the implementation of policies and programs in both the park and research units at the Institute of Archaeology, and in the coordination of the annual Belize Archaeology Symposium, which is going to happen June, right? Yeah. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Ella. Thank you, Ella, and thank you to the organizers of this event and to the other panelists who have been speaking. In adding to this conversation, I thought I would address my recent graduate of school. You know, I just graduated last year, and I thought I'd add some perspective for the viewers on this. Like Sherry mentioned, there are limited opportunities in Belize, and I was fortunate to kind of end up in archaeology and in the heritage field, which was really just kind of happenstance. When I graduated from the community college here in Belize, I was very interested in natural resources and in the natural resources management field, and there was an opening at the then Department of Archaeology, and I got the opportunity to fill in for that opening, and my career kind of just grew from that. And now here I am with a PhD in archaeology in Belize. I think much of that interest was credited to my family for always, you know, we grew up in Belize surrounded by all this nature and different archaeological sites, and there's just a wealth of that kind of opportunity here. And so it was no surprise that I would end up there because I've always had a love for that. Over the last 4 years or so that I've been pursuing my PhD, I think it was very important that you know, there was that passion for that field that you choose. If you have to be self-motivated to get through an event like that, and so having that passion for your career really establishes that for you. Having a good relationship with your advisors and your mentors really play a critical part of that journey as well, because you want somebody that you can easily relate to, you know, easily turn to for advice if there's any questions along the way. So communication is very important, not just in your work, but also in your school and academic career. So you need to ensure that you have that support in getting through that. Another piece of advice would be that you know, you build that social network like everybody has been mentioning, because moving along, not even in your career, but you don't actually need academic advice all the time, but just to know that you have a support network all along the way, that you can do it, you can get through it. You know, it's very important that we have that no matter what stage we are in our careers. And for me, I never saw my gender playing a factor in what I would do or where I would end up, because for the Institute of Archaeology, we have maybe out of the 27 different archaeology projects that work in Belize, about half of them are directed by female archaeologists. So for me, you know, that was never an issue. We see this every day. We work with these people every day, and it was very easy for me to move along, because there was always that resource. I could always reach out to people, And so I think that that is also very important for young professionals and for students to know that, you know, it's important to reach out. People might see that you're moving along, but they never know that you might need some piece of advice or something. So feel free to reach out, because people are very open and willing to provide you with that advice. We just have to know that you need some help, or just to talk to someone, you know, if you have issues or anything like that. I'll be brief because I know that we're short on time. If there's anything else that comes up, I'll be willing to answer.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. I just want to praise you and highlight that you're the first female who got her PhD in archaeology in Belize. So I think that is a wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yes, claps. Yes, I think it is. I think it is amazing, and also what you mentioned, that all the, like, at least half of the projects are run by women in Belize. I've noticed that, or rather, I didn't notice it because, you know, I started my archaeology career in Belize, and I was surrounded by women. You know, I'm looking back. My professor was women. Other principal investigators running excavations were women. Everyone. I was just surrounded by women, and then the ladies I started the organization with, you know, we're a group of girlfriends also, and we didn't even, like you said, we didn't pick up on that, and I think we were a month into running the organization and running events when someone actually pointed out that we're an all-female directorial board, which which took us by surprise, and that's when we kind of sat back and thought, oh yes, that is true. And so then we embraced it. But yes, I just wanted to congratulate you for being the first female archaeology first, what did I say? First female who received her PhD in archaeology in Belize. So I think that is wonderful. And I think we can go into our Q&A session. If that's all right with everyone, I can you can unmute yourselves. And we have quite a few comments and questions in the comment section, so I'm gonna tackle them in chronological order. Some of them are just thank you notes. Oh, here's one from Lori Marik. I hope I pronounced her name properly. And she's saying, in my experience, there are many women working on a voluntary basis in the heritage field, for example, in ICOMOS. I wonder if the leadership roles in large organizations are also held by women. That is a good question. I think we can address this. I think we each come from a very different organizations, so I think we can like speak to the leadership in our organizations or within our networks. What have you been experiencing?
I'm happy to chip in. It's certainly in the UK, in the NGO sector, I think a lot of leaders are women. I was mentally running through all the organizations I know and realizing that there are good numbers of women in leadership roles. I think we have a challenge a little bit more with some of the big institutions. So the public bodies, I think perhaps the story is not quite so good there. And there is certainly instances where you realize that a panel of leaders in parts of the sector turns out to be all men from time to time. So it's I don't think it's a straightforward question. I think it varies, but NGO sector, charity sector feels a bit healthier to me.
Mm-hmm. I have definitely noticed that as well, that you don't think about it until potentially a panel of board members turn out to be all male, and that's when a lot of organizations, pick up on it, that the change is slower than we've expected. Maybe that doesn't necessarily speak to their efforts in pursuing gender balance at all. It is, I think, it's a very slow process, and I think it would take time to change, maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just searching for, because what, as I mentioned, our president, Araceli Pereda, so she, definitely a woman, yeah. But she was speaking on an event for Europa Nostra in March, and she was actually naming all the women that are having leading positions. So both in ICOMOS and in UNESCO and in Council of Europe. But I see this question actually being divided into two questions. So one is, and I would like to underline, working on a voluntary basis. So that's one thing. And then other is leadership roles in large organizations. Because I do believe that we are a lot in the sector. I'm not sure if I dare to say we are a majority. But a lot of work is being done on a voluntary basis. So that can be a problem, because in a certain point of life you have other priorities, so you cannot fully dedicate yourself if that's not your main job. But as far as leadership roles, I believe we are getting there. I think that we are ahead of a lot of other sectors, because in culture we do have a lot of ministries of culture that are female. Why not new Europa Nostra president is also female. So we are getting there slowly, but I would also like to mention all the work that is being done on a voluntary basis, both by men and women, that actually is one of the driving forces of the sector, and it's not being maybe recognized fully. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Yeah. It definitely ties in with the career opportunities question, and there are some issues with the volunteering culture that a lot of the organizations are trying to tackle at the moment as well. But that impacts all volunteers or interns, not necessarily just women, to be honest. Yeah. Let me see if there are other. Do you have any? Would you like to add anything to this question? Or
maybe just one comment.
Yes.
The Europa Nostra General Assembly has actually appointed on Friday a new president for Europa Nostra, and it is a woman, Cecilia Bartoli. So another woman leading in the heritage sector.
Yes, definitely. That's great news. And also, we have Melissa Imbeliz appointed as the head of the Institute of Archaeology. And so I also see many women being appointed to be in leadership positions, which is great. I think it's a wonderful change.
I was just going to add, oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the things that we've encountered here at the university, our provost is a woman, 2 of the 3 deans are women, head of our marketing is woman, student affairs. And so oftentimes when we go to meetings, and, like if other organizations like UNICEF, International Organization for Migration, some of these different groups that we have relationships with, there'll just be a whole room full of women and maybe just almost like a token guy there. And it's kind of come up that we need to start diversifying. And I, step back and find that really interesting, that, wow, how this happened. So at our institution, yeah, it's women.
Yeah, even in my, oh, go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to add that, the people that we work with from the Institute of Archaeology, we do see a lot of women. However, even but at this level at the Institute of Archaeology, it's taken quite a while for a woman to get into any kind of leadership position, because ever since the 1950s, when this department was first created, this is the first time that there is a woman on the board or leading this institution. So it varies what sector you are in, I believe. For me, it's very exciting that we finally have a woman in this capacity, but it's also a little bit surprising because we've had so many women working in this field for so long.
Yes, definitely. I think it aligns well with the question that there are a lot of women working in as volunteers, or in some kind of positions, and then slowly they're making their way to the top, and it's a slower change. Let's move on to some of the other questions that we have. We have one from Sylvia. Thank you for this informative and timely discussion. My question is, how can we foster better exchange of ideas and practices between women in the heritage sector, between Europe and Central America, Latin America, or globally?
I think I would say I think LinkedIn is a good platform. I think that actually just putting information out there about what people are doing. So write an article and put it on LinkedIn about what it is you're doing or an idea that you've got. And we've got the network for women heritage on LinkedIn. If we can tag each other, we can connect each other there. It's a universal platform. So I think that's certainly something that strikes me as being straightforward. It doesn't take people to organise it. But I was thinking it'd be quite nice to have an award for a youth-led project, an international award for a youth-led project every year, as just another way of putting something in the spotlight.
I think it would be, I love that idea. I think it would be nice. I was thinking about this question as well when I saw Sylvia put it up, because I think what Hen B has done such a fantastic thing here, and then the connections in Europe, being able to bring in groups of women doing a variety of different things, and so linking up, community groups, women who've got, I think of the Women's Cooperative in San Antonio, Shail down south, looking at clothing, and finding a similar group overseas and being able to connect those groups so they can share and see what is going on. On the academic end, I think it's a lot easier for academics to connect, and there's always lots of opportunities, whether it's conferences, research collaborations. But looking at our anthropology club, so from our university, we've got, I think, a really strong, vibrant club, but it would be great to connect them with a university anthropology club, see what they're doing, connect. They could host events together. And again, building those connections, being able to connect, and maybe even looking at exchanges. They could be virtual exchanges. There's ways to get funding to have women who are doing some really interesting things with heritage, maybe in their community, and giving them an opportunity to go over. So I think there are ways where it could be really, at that grassroots level, but then as a more formal, the movement of people to be able to share ideas.
I think going digital during COVID helped a lot. And it's not to say that these opportunities weren't there. Zoom existed, streaming online existed, but suddenly everyone went online, and what I've noticed is suddenly some amazing networks were formed. And it's not to say that people were not there before, or they weren't doing the same job they're doing now, but somehow people connected much more or more often, because we used the digital technology. We were forced to use digital technology, and so I think it brought something really, really great. Our symposium was started last year. It's called the Culture Symposium, and we really had the opportunity to have people from all over the world. Some of the people who worked in Belize but weren't able to come, they live in the US. And we also had the opportunity to have, young students present alongside, tenured academics. And it was great. We really enjoyed it. I think everyone really enjoyed it. And if it wasn't for this digital push, we wouldn't have been able to have those connections or create those connections. So I think the world, or the heritage and culture field, is going in the right direction, definitely, in creating these networks. Anything else to add, or we can move on to the next question? Let's see. Here is a question from Monica Manzour. What challenges have you experienced in your career, and how did you overcome them? How did the other generations of female professionals help you in that respect? Anyone to add any challenges?
Well, if until other girls are ready, I just want to say, I think I tackled this a bit during my initial presentations, but I mean, I think that bottom line is we all have different challenges, and depending on path we are taking, it can lead us to one thing or another, and it can present um series of different challenges. But in my personal experience, I am, as I said, lucky to be able to rely on female professionals in my office, as we are all female, but generally to rely on generations that passed this point where I'm at, and to always find let's say like a positive response, positive attitude, willingness to understand my position, and willingness to at least try to help me. You don't They don't get it right every time, or maybe the situations are different in a ways that we didn't initially see it, so their reply does not apply to me. But at least I found that people are very open-minded, positive, and are willing to at least listen to you and try to help you. So in that regard, that's my experience.
I just wanted to add too that in my career, I've been fortunate to have had many connections with female archaeologists and other female professionals along the way, and like Yasna just mentioned, it's been I've had very good support. I've reached out to people, and no one has ever said no, or not been there to listen. So I think that is very important, just to reach out to people.
There's something nice that happens in the UK on social media, that there's a group of us who are women working in heritage, cultural heritage, and every so often, prompted by, I don't know, a day of such and such or whatever, there's a little moment where people just take a second and say, I'd just like to pay tribute to long list of other social media accounts for all these women, and say thank you for the work that they've done. So there's something nice about just a little bit of recognition, a little shout out that goes around our sector in the UK, that if you're having a Monday afternoon and things aren't going well, it just gives you a little boost, which I think is a tiny thing in some ways, but actually really encouraging in others.
Yeah, definitely. And there are a lot of instances where people share Instagram accounts to follow. So in a post, they post a thank you post, and then they tag all the other female-led organizations or female-led projects or initiatives that others can follow, and to just like spread the word. And that's also, I think, a great initiative to do. We have I'm gonna put up one last question, because we're running a bit out of time. So just this will be the last question, but don't forget that you can, if you watch the replay, you can ask your question in the comments, and then someone from our organization will have a look at it and try to answer you. So this is the beauty of having the replays online. So this is the last question from Rebecca Frider-Juan. A great panel of inspiring women in the heritage fields. I'm wondering what you all see as the biggest challenges in heritage right now, personally, locally, or globally. And how can we engage the public more to understand and be involved in the solutions to these challenges? That's a good question.
That's a big question.
Yes.
Really big question. I could go for something that's actually quite connected to where we are in time. I think that having had two and a bit years of dealing with the COVID pandemic, a lot of people are actually just tired. I think there's a lot of people who've been working really, really hard and are, the energy levels have dipped a bit. So I think that there's almost a need for everyone just to recuperate for a little while and then regroup once we've got our energy back. So for me, that's a resource issue, that's a capacity issue. In terms of getting the public more engaged, there is a slight tendency, I think, in cultural heritage where we always like to make it look as if everything's wonderful all the time and everything is really easy and it's great and all this positive stuff happens. I actually think we might do ourselves a favor by talking to the public honestly about when things are difficult. We would really love to do this thing, but there's a bit of a barrier here. And actually invite them to get involved more and say, we've got a problem here. We don't know how to fix it necessarily, but maybe you do. And be a bit more open in that way. Not so easy to do, maybe, but it's a thought.
I definitely agree. I think it's something we've learned as well. Juggling all these projects throughout COVID with the NGO, and sometimes we would just have to, and say, this didn't work out. We cannot do this without the support of this and this. If you'd like to participate, please join us, or please bring force, and things like that. And I think it ties in with transparency as well. Just being transparent about when things go wrong. It's nothing to really be ashamed about, to be honest. I think there's this stigma tied in, like, with having to do everything right, and if you don't, then you're horrible at your job, which is not true at all. And I think it's really hard to get over, or to be maybe brave enough to say, we need help to do this. And when you say we need help, you would be surprised how many people would jump at the opportunity. We wanted to have some volunteers in the very first months of our us starting the NGO, and we had hundreds of people, and some of them were like, I don't know anything about archaeology, I don't know anything about cultural heritage, but if you have an event and you need someone to carry the chairs for you, I will be there. And so it was just amazing how interested people were, and how compassionate and understanding they were in the hopes of even getting involved, which is wonderful. Yeah, definitely. I agree. Do you have anything else to add?
I would like to throw out that getting volunteers, but and maybe this is from the Belize perspective, but funding, because whether we like it or not, sometimes you just need some money to be able to get various activities, events, and because you're also recognizing that all of these individuals that you want to maybe bring in, to value their time and their knowledge and their expertise and their skills, So as much as you rely on volunteers, we can't always just expect that all of these people too are going to be volunteering their time. And so, getting access for funding to be able to promote heritage just in general, I think for me, I see that as a bit of a struggle. And those opportunities that in Belize, getting access to those sort of funds, especially now after COVID, when a lot of the funds aren't available, and you're competing outside. I see that as a bit of a challenge, and so having to spend time writing grants. And I know at HENB, I know you're all familiar with having to do that, and it's a lot of time and energy getting involved in that. So that would sort of be when I'm looking at Rebecca's question, one of the challenges locally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's also a global challenge, to be honest. Funding is the ultimate issue in our sector, sadly. I think we ran out of time. We actually went over time, but thank you for staying with us because we had such an interesting conversation and such great advice from all of you. And thank you for coming to the event. I will make sure to have this event stay online. So if anyone has any other questions, you can ask in the comments, and maybe some of the presenters or speakers can go back and maybe engage in the comments later on. And I hope to see all of you soon in other events, and stay in touch. As we said, networking is important. And thank you for taking the time. And yes, hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck in your careers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Take care.